June 17th, and Sammy Sosa plus a rainout keeps the crosstown series off the front page. But today we have baseball. Sox and Cubs meet up at a drier Wrigley Field.
A fly ball to left, and it's well hit. Soriano's not going to have room, just into the basket.
One day later than expected, Ozzie and the Sox take the field against Lou Piniella's Cubs. Could the Sox get their 4th straight win in the series? Will the Cubs bats finally wake up? We've got highlights and all the reaction from the friendly confines.
Swung on, there she goes! Number 62! Move over, Big Mac, you got company!
Now that Slammin' Sam has been linked to performance-enhancing drugs, what does that do for his legacy and possible induction into the Hall of Fame?
Goes for the end zone, and the ball is caught. Was he inbounds? Yes.
And what's in store for this year's Northwestern football team? We'll visit with Top Cat Pat Fitzgerald as he looks to return to a bowl game. Plus, Hall of Fame running back Gale Sayers stops by the studio to give us his thoughts on the upcoming Bears season. It all starts right now on Chicago Tribune Live. Welcome to this Wednesday edition of Chicago Tribune Live, presented by Harris Bank. It's great to be with you. I'm David Kaplan. Let's meet our guests on today's panel. From the Tribune, warming up after a long season on the ice, Hawks beat man Chris Cook is here, and Lou Canellis from the Chicago Bears Network. You'll catch him throughout the football season right here on CSN. All right, let's get right to it and talk about baseball as the weather finally allowed the Sox and the Cubs to start the Crosstown Classic earlier today in a game shown here on Comcast Sportsnet. And it didn't take long for the White Sox to put it on the board. Second hitter of the game is Alexi Ramirez, and he's left the building. Sends this Ryan Dempster pitch into the left field bleachers. Ramirez is 6th hitter of the season. Sox up 1-0. Top of the second, after a Brian Anderson bloop single, Chris Getz breaks his back. But he manages to poke this one in the corner, rolls all the way to the wall. Anderson scores without a play. Getz at third with a triple. Sox up 2-0. Bottom of the 4th, Cubs had a chance against Danks. Runners on the corners, nobody out, but after a Lee flat, a Soto strikeout, Reed Johnson grounds into the easy fielder's choice. Inning over, still 2-0. Top of the 7th, 1 out, man on the corners. Ozzie calls for the suicide. Scotty Pods executes it perfectly. Getz scores. Pods even beats the throw to first. Sox up 3-0. More than enough for John Danks, who gave up just 1 run over 7 innings, striking out 9 along the way. Sox beat the Cubs 4-1.
I know that they're professional hitters and guys that have hit at this level before and hit a lot at this level. So, you know, you do have to be careful with them, but at the same time, you need to be aggressive. And you know, I feel like I was able to make them hit my pitch.
I think Danks was the key. You know, Danks threw the ball real well. I think that's the best I see him throw the ball in a while, and he can pick the best time of that. You know, they have good hitters up there, and he was outstanding.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. Yep. You know, we're just going to continue to work, and hopefully at some point it'll get better. I mean, you know, really all you can do is look forward to the next game and the next day and keep your head up and continue to play hard. You know, I think the good news is it can't get much worse.
All right, so you have a Cub offense that looks absolutely brutal right now. I mean, they are struggling mightily. Johnny Danks was great. He pitched ahead in the count all day long.
And it's good to see him pitching and throwing strikes, because when he throws strikes, that's when he's most effective. He had a bad stretch. Opened the season decent, then went through a bad stretch. Recently, in his last couple of outings, he got no support, and today he got the 4 runs, and we've seen all year long that 4 runs against the Cubs assures you of a victory. I don't know where to start with this Cubs offense, Cap. I mean, I guess you know where you start? Right at the top.
Okay,
Mr. Soriano.
Here's my rant. I told the guys in the newsroom I was going to say this. Now, I know he's making $18 million. I know he was a guy who's highly thought of around baseball and gets a lot of votes for the All-Star game, which is a popularity contest. Lou Piniella, you need to sit this man down. You need to bench him right now. His knee obviously is a problem. He can't hit. He's down to 225, and he keeps running him out there at the leadoff spot. At what point do you sit there and say, well, you're down to 200, but you've done it before? Is it 175? Is it 150? At some point, you sit this guy down and you say, I'm not going to play you right now, or if I am, you're not going to lead off for me. It's embarrassing.
Since May 24th, he's 13 for 86. He's hitting 151, 3 RBIs, 7 extra base hits.
But Lou, he's comfortable. He's in the leadoff spot.
Well, I think if you heard Lou Piniella after the game, he said it's about time now to make changes.
You think?
Well, he's waited this long. They didn't wait this long to sit David Ortiz down in Boston. Why have they waited this long here with the Cubs?
How do you really feel, though, is my question. No, I'm not sure that you bench him.
Blood pressure up.
I know, I can tell. I don't know if you bench him at this point. Is the alternative be better? But to get him out of the leadoff spot, I mean...
Well, I'm not saying you bench him indefinitely, but you say, you know what, I'm going to let Jake Fox play 5-6 days in a row out in left field. I'm going to let you heal your knee up a little bit, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah, as you point out, Ortiz is a great example about that. Yeah, I mean, exactly. What, are you not going to score runs without him? I mean, but to have him at the top of the lineup, not setting any kind of table, is really just killing this offense. And, not that he's not the only guy struggling, but he sets the table or doesn't set the table in this case.
Well,
by the way, welcome to the show, Fred.
Good to be here, fighting traffic from Wrigley, and listening to Lou. He didn't say it with as much passion as you did, but indeed he is planning some changes, and it's you could say long overdue. But let's point out too that it's not simply that leadoff spot that's killing them. 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position today. That kills them. So they're getting runners on base, and they're just not getting that clutch hit. One clutch hit there, and it's a different ball game. So that's a big part of the problem.
Well, it doesn't stop. Excuse me, with Soriano, because I wrote down some names. Soto 0 for 4 again today. I mean, the guy, last year's National League Rookie of the Year, not even hitting his weight. Fukudome today, his average is lower than it was a year ago at this time. So I don't want to hear about how much he's come along. We all have, written down and talked about Milton Bradley's fortune so far in a Cubs uniform, despite having 2 hits today in the lineup. And Fontenot, Miles, and Ramirez out of the lineup. I mean, where do you go? That's the problem. And it's something you and I talked about, Cappy, before we went on the air. And I know you guys have beaten it to death here. They've beaten it to death on the radio. They've beaten it to death in the papers. Mark DeRosa, if he's available, whatever you have to do to at least jumpstart an offense, go get him.
I completely agree, but I do not believe there is any way that the Cub hierarchy would make that move.
Because of the extra money? Because of the extra money to the $130 million
I think if you called them up and said, I'll pay the money, bring him here, I don't think they want to step up and say, we screwed up.
That's a tough thing to do, admit that you made a mistake. Although, good management does do that, would bring someone back. Was this team just kind of waiting around for Ramirez to get back, you think? We'll tread water. And it's just been, they haven't been able to tread water. They're drowning.
But you got to remember, a guy coming off a serious shoulder injury, he's not rolling into the lineup and hitting 370.
Right, but I think that's the problem. Is I think they see this hole. It's like, well, we'll fill this hole eventually. But yeah, you've got to do something before.
You're right, Chris. I mean, that was the hope that would happen. Something similar to what the Dodgers were able to do when Manny Ramirez is out for the 50-game suspension, and they've done a terrific job doing that. The Cubs have not, and we all know that there's a domino effect when you lose a key dangerous hitter. Because the opposing pitcher will concentrate so much on 1 or 2, maybe 3 guys in the lineup that gives a guy like a Fontenot or Terrio the chance to kind of get some good pitches, because the pitcher's concentrating so much on Ramirez or D. Lee and Soriano. So that's why you have the domino effect of when Soriano's not hitting and Ramirez is out and the other guys are struggling, then the pitchers don't have to worry so much about this.
We had Frank Thomas sitting there the other day, and he said Milton Bradley's going to hit. He said he was my teammate. He's got his quirks. He's going to hit. But the one that bothers me, the one that drives me absolutely insane, is watching Soriano. He's not a good defensive player, yet we're continually told, well, where are we going to play Jake Fox? He's not good defensively. He can't be worse than the guy you're trotting out there for $18 million, and that guy's hitting higher than any guy in professional baseball. Do you know when they sent him down, he was 5 of 6 as a pinch hitter? Nope, go back down. Well, he's up here now. Play the guy. Just let's see what he can do.
Or,
maybe raise his trade value.
I was going to say play him or trade him somewhere to the American League where he can, he can DH and get something for him. Again, I think the thing is that you know how good the Cubs are when Soriano's hot. I mean, he basically, of those 97 wins last year, a good portion of those were because when he was hot, they rolled. But it's just they're just that much bad when he's not going well, and I think that's the problem. You mentioned Manny Ramirez, Fred. That's because Juan Pierre came in and hit, was playing like an all-star. Cubs haven't had one of those guys to do that. Come and step in, and whether it had to be Derek Lee or whoever, Fontenot or somebody needed to step up.
All right, they're good about the White Sox today. We mentioned John Diggs. He was awesome. But they also look like a team that they're in there fighting and scrapping. They have a little more life to them.
What a nice surprise Scotty Pods has been.
How about that?
All right, he's hit safely in 14 of his last 15 games, and he's always making things happen out there on the base paths. Today, not on the base paths, but he comes up with that squeeze single. Had actually another stolen base. I think he's 9 for 12 in stolen bases since joining this team. The guy's career has, been reborn here as a member of the White Sox, bringing us back to the days of 2005 when this franchise won the World Series. And I don't think anyone's ever, criticized the starting pitching staff so far this season. They've gotten decent starting pitching all year. It was, could the bullpen come through, and where would they manufacture runs? And they played that Ozzie ball today that I thought we'd see all season long.
I think any manager in either league would like to have the options that the White Sox have right now with Pud Sednick, and you're able to hit and run, you're able to squeeze bunt, you're able to be a smart manager and say, I know this guy can make contact, I know this guy can bunt, I know this guy can run, so I can do so many things. I know Lou Piniella would love to have those options. Any manager would love to have those options. The great St. Louis Cardinals teams of the 80s made Whitey Herzog look like a genius because he had all those guys who were switch hitters, who could bunt, who could run. So that's a great weapon to have, and that's what a team like the Cubs needs right now to manufacture some runs, so you don't depend on Soriano hitting a leadoff home run or some of the other guys hitting.
And that leadoff home run stat is like the most overrated thing in it. Wow, it's 1-0. Yeah, I'm not discounting the fact you got one run, but he's just killing you.
Well, how about Kenny Williams? I mean, he gets some credit here for pulling Sednick out of the dust heap.
From home.
Exactly. I mean, how many teams would want a guy setting the table like he is? Not to mention the Cubs, but remember we talked before the season, got to go get Brian Roberts. Both sides of town needed Brian Roberts. You got Sednick for nothing, and he's already a fan favorite. He's stealing bases. He's playing some tough D. I think Kenny Williams deserves a lot of credit. We'll see if the Freddie Garcia thing works out. But as far as bringing back an old timer, or a guy who had some history with the team, I think it's a great move.
He's playing the type of baseball that Ozzie Guillen wanted to play. I mean, that's what we heard. Let's get back to the small ball instead of the power team that we had. And then Ozzie felt that if his starting pitching could come through, we're in good shape. Well, it was just last Friday when the White Sox were 6.5 out, and as a White Sox fan, I said, boy, they get swept at Wrigley Field, and it's time for the white flag to be flown. Now, instead, because of solid starting pitching, this team is 4 games out, on a bit of a roll now, and starting to believe in themselves, and I don't hear all the time, well,
easy,
Carlos
they're not even 500 now.
I know, but they're playing in a bad division.
It's all
Tigers are the only team in the AL Central right now playing 500 or better baseball. They're in a bad division, just like the Cubs were a year ago. I'm not saying they're going to win 97, but 87 wins might win the AL Central.
What did the Cardinals win a few years ago?
83
games, and they won the World Series.
Now,
so it's all relative.
Bill Melton was talking to me in the green room earlier, and he said he looked at both the newspapers did their all-Chicago team. And you can argue who should be at what position, but if you take the best players in Chicago and make an all-Chicago team, Cubs and Sox, he will tell you that he thinks offensively the Baltimore Orioles are a better team than the all-Chicago team. If you look at it, guys like Nick Markakis, Adam Jones, Melvin Moore, Aubrey Huff, Matt Wieters, they're dead last in the AL East, and he's right. You look at the numbers, the Orioles offensively are better than the all-Chicago team.
Probably, but, it takes more, obviously it takes some pitching, and, Sox have a great bullpen. You also talk about the White Sox, they're also without their best hitter right now. So, I mean, now whether they can tread water until Puente comes back.
They're 2 of their best hitters, because Tomey didn't play. He's at the pinch hitting role. Paulie's got a thumb problem, and CQ isn't even playing right now.
And they may be without CQ for a long time. I mean, the plantar fasciitis really bothering him, and he had a terrific year last year, but I think it's time for this team to start looking ahead. that he may not be around all year long.
Well, is that why you go to Ozzie ball now and you bunt and you squeeze and
as much as you
run
can?
The bases?
And as Cappy said, you don't have Tomey in the lineup, so this is as good a time as any to play Ozzie ball.
Yeah.
By the way, Ryan Dempster struggled all game long. He battled, he competed, but he walked 6 hitters. He gave up 3 runs, pitched into the 7th inning. He had just given up 2 at the end of 6. So another quality start from the Cubs, and they do not support their guys. You're not going to get that kind of pitching all year long.
No, and we talked to Lou before the game about whether the team is flat or not showing enough energy. And
you look flat when you don't hit.
Yeah, he stated the obvious there that if you're not scoring runs, if you're not hitting, not getting the clutch hits, you are going to look flat, and you are going to waste some opportunities. I mean, Dempster was not at his sharpest at all today with 6 walks. I think that was a season high. He was searching all day long to
But Freddie, is that rhythm. To be excused because of what he's going through with his daughter? I know that they're going to allow him to pitch on Monday and then spend time with his daughter. He won't have to make the road trip to Detroit. I mean, at some point, I don't think we as media or the fans out there take into account that these are human beings.
Absolutely.
And when he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders with what his daughter is going through, that needs to be taken into account.
No question about it.
He will not be with the club next week because they are being able to bring her home. She's been dealing with some very serious health issues, and he said he's just so excited to get her home.
I think, Lou, that's a good point. I mean, I think fans, some of the fans think once you step between the lines, everything's, all I do is worry about the game. I don't think that's true. I think it's, it's always back there, and you get little reminders. And I mean, he struggled today, but you mentioned he battled. I think he walked 6, but none of those runners scored. Obviously got his pitch count up a little higher, but he's a veteran who, well, you know him better than probably us here, but he is a guy who's going to go out there no matter what's going on in his personal life, unless it's
and compete.
Exactly, and I think that's what the Cubs need.
All right, I've calmed down now. The final game of this shortened series is tomorrow at 1:20 at the Friendly Confines. You can catch the action right here on Comcast Sportsnet. Pregame Live gets you rolling for the action. It all begins at noon. We'll continue our baseball talk in a moment as Sammy Sosa becomes the latest baseball player to be accused of using PEDs. Stick around. Where's that former American League home run champ?
Everything's good.
You didn't have to face me.
Stacy and I thought it was Lou All's best game of the year.
You see Shane go in and score last night? He turnstile that guy.
I'm a basketball guy.
Comcast Sportsnet's all-star lineup.
Went crazy.
Now that's supposed to be.
Down here, please. And that's how the batting game got started.
Fans just like you.
Hey, deep dish, big boy. Want some water?
Find all the greats on Comcast Sportsnet. Fans' best friend.
Empire is fantastic. The prices were beyond competitive.
That's right. Get the lowest price guaranteed on quality name brand flooring from Empire. Plus, shop at home convenience, next day installation, and no payments for 1 year.
No other company can even come close to the quality and service we received.
Why buy your new floors anywhere else? Call now to get the lowest price guaranteed.
800-588-2300 Empire. Today. It's Sports Central on WGN Radio. Weeknights from 7 to 9, it's David Kaplan. Weekends from 4 to 6, it's Jim Memolo and Glenn Kozlowski. The hottest topics in sports, 7 days a week. Chicago's #1 sports radio show, Sports Central on the Voice of Chicago. News Talk 720 WGN.
$1,000 tax, title, and license. You can do just that. It's got that full leather interior.
See all the ways we're here to help at harrisbankhelps.com.
Haven't ordered dinner yet? Then try Giordano's, Chicago's famous stuffed pizza. We made it good. You made it famous.
Sports Night. Every night on Comcast Sportsnet. Fans' best friend.
We have our ChicagoTribune.com question of the day. It is, if this report is true and Sammy Sosa did test positive for performance-enhancing drugs, does he belong in the Baseball Hall of Fame? Log on to ChicagoTribune.com/sports. Let us know what you think. Either yes or no. That's where I'm going. We have the results for you later in the show. And today comes word a congressional committee will look into Sosa's denial of using performance-enhancing drugs when he testified back in 2005 at a House hearing. All right, thoughts. You have a vote for the Hall of Fame. Dan McGrath, Phil Rogers were in here the other day. You were here. We had this discussion about whether Sammy's a Hall of Famer. That was before this allegation leaked out. Does it change your opinion now?
Oh, absolutely. And I have maintained, publicly throughout when questions are about his Hall of Fame viability are brought up is, first of all, we don't have to vote until 4 years from now. And the more information that we get, the better informed we are, the better we're able to make a good decision, shall we say. I think all of us Hall of Fame voters would like to have some guidelines from the board of directors of the Hall of Fame with regard to players who have been associated with steroid abuse. The numbers are staggering. We know about so many of the big name guys who've been associated with it. There are a lot of lesser known guys who've been associated. There have been a lot of pitchers who've been associated with it. We sort of focus more on the sluggers for whatever reason than we do the pitchers, and it sort of evens the playing field. And not that it makes either one of them right, but like I said, we don't have to vote for 4 years from now, until 4 years from now. But right now, obviously, with this information, and it's a negative.
If he came clean, and came out and said, "I lied to Congress," okay, when he said, "I did not take any illegally performance-enhancing drugs, any illegal performance-enhancing drugs.
And no one injected me with
anything. No one injected me." If he came clean and came out and said that. By the way, Sammy, I know that you were waiting for the Hall of Fame to call you, waiting patiently, as you said last
You better
week.
have a comfortable chair.
And you better not, I know you didn't know English or certain words in the English language when you met in front of Congress. I bet he'll know what perjury means real quick.
Real quick.
If he came clean, would you vote for him?
Like I say, we're talking about 4 years from now, and we're talking about finding out hopefully more. If there are more, we know there's supposedly 104 names on the list. Suppose we find out in 4 years that it's 350. There's so many other factors that have to come into play. But we've already seen some guys who appeared contrite and people have forgiven them, from Mandy Pettit to Jason Giambi to Brian Roberts. So you'd have to think about it.
All right, joining us now on the phone, the man who broke the story for the New York Times, Michael Schmidt. Michael, thank you for taking time. How long have you been, A, sitting on this information, and B, do you think once this furor dies down that we're then going to have another big name leak out, and when that furor dies down we'll get another, or do you think there is a chance that the list of 104 is out, here are the guys, and we move on from that and close the chapter?
I don't think we're ever going to have a big dump of all the names. Those will probably be famous last words of mine, and they'll be appearing somewhere else tomorrow. But I think that if, maybe a few more names will come out, but in all likelihood, I can't imagine a big dump of the entire list.
Luke and Ellis here, why now? Is there any coincidence behind Sosa's name coming out thanks to you yesterday and his remarks made just last week about how he'll sit and wait for the Hall of Fame to come calling?
I think I would have broken the story regardless of that, but I also believe that probably made my work a little bit easier to do. It's something that we have heard about and been working on for some time.
Michael, it's Chris Cook of the Chicago Tribune. Is the players their names are coming out, do you expect any legal action as far as, this was supposed to be a confidential list and now the names are coming out? I know it doesn't exonerate them at all, but there's going to be some people who are angry that this list is coming out.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to speculate on that because that could involve me and it could involve what I've reported. So I wouldn't want to speculate on that, but I think if you look at the quotes from Bob Dupay today from baseball and from Selig, and I think you can guess that the Players Association is probably not happy about it.
Hi, Michael. It's Fred Mitchell from the Tribune. Tell me a little bit about the personal reaction since your story broke, And also, all of us, obviously, in the newspaper business, you know, when you have a story like this with the anonymous person named, you have to sort of convince your editors that this is a reliable source and perhaps reveal that source to your editor at least. How did that all come out for you?
Well, this all kind of started after A-Rod's positive test was revealed. Wherever I went, people who know what I do, I basically cover drugs in baseball, said to me, when's the list going to come out? When's that list of 104 players going to come out? And I didn't really have a good answer for them. I said, oh, well, it's, the list is under seal and it's in this pending litigation in California. But I didn't have an answer for them. And everywhere I went, people kept on asking me. And I eventually said to myself, I said, you know what? If all these people are asking me and I don't really have a good answer, I should probably go after it. I said, what are you doing? Why don't you go after the list? At least you can say you tried. And that's sort of how this got started. And I've been surprised at the amount of attention that the story's actually gotten, because I thought a lot of people had already sort of convicted Sosa rightly or wrongfully in their own minds.
We appreciate you taking time. Last one for you. If you were advising a player, you were an agent, and you were advising him, and you cover this stuff for a living, and you knew that that player was on the list, would you tell him, before it leaks out, let's just come clean? Let's have a press conference, say, you know what? I took it, I screwed up, I ask for your forgiveness, or would you hope that it never came to see the light of day?
I would probably tell them not to say anything. I don't think that, I think it's very, very difficult to get at this list and to get at this information, and I'd play the odds. I would certainly play the odds.
Well, congratulations on some great investigative work. Hope there's no troubles in your future having to deal with breaking a story of this magnitude, but you certainly did great work.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. That is Michael Schmidt from the New York Times. All right, we all work in the journalism business. You two guys write. Your thoughts on what he did? Do you think there are legal repercussions that he'll be facing because of what he was able to accomplish?
Well, once again, it depends on who his sources were, and like I said, he usually, if you're going to go with an anonymous source in a case like this, you'd better convince your paper's editor and perhaps legal staff to say that this is a reliable.
Back me up. It's reliable.
It's a reliable source, right? So that's the key thing. I mean, we all, as beat writers and columnists, you come across situations where it looks pretty obvious, but you don't have it nailed. You don't have a confession, or you don't have somebody coming out saying something, and so you really can't write it. And so you better be dead sure in a case like that.
Yeah, you've got to have some evidence. You can't have, hey, I heard a guy told another guy who may or may not be on the list. So I'm guessing, I'm fairly certain that he's got the evidence. Whether it's the list itself or what it is. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to call a guy out like this and put it out there, and he said he was surprised at how big the story is. Boy, in Chicago, that doesn't get any bigger than that, really.
Right.
So it didn't surprise me that it got as much play as it has. But I think Fred pointed out, you really have got to make sure that you're right, and I think he's right.
Is it so far-fetched to think that someone high up in Major League Baseball is leaking these names, and that there is someone that lives in that baseball tower who says, I know the Players Association would rather it not be this way, but this will be the only way we can put the steroid era behind us. Let's leak out the big names, and hopefully at some point all those 104 names come out so we don't have to deal with this on a monthly, yearly basis.
Well, one thing that comes to mind is that Major League Baseball, just like every other business in America during these economic times, are cutting back and are firing people, laying them off, or whatever. Maybe it's a disgruntled former employee that happened to know something that was going on with Sosa or another player, and then they would say, okay, hey, we're going to get this guy.
All right, Sports Night comes your way at the bottom of the hour. For a preview, let's head over to the anchor desk where Mark Shanowski is standing by. Ski?
All right, Cap, thanks a lot. We'll have much more on the Sammy Sosa story in Sports Night. Hear what Paul Konerko had to say about the allegations swirling around Sammy. Also on the show, as you'd expect, team coverage from the Crosstown Classic. Chuck Arfine and Gail Fisher have reports from the Sox and Cubs clubhouses after Game 1 at Wrigley Field. And as Bears organized team activities come to a close out at Hallis Hall, Lovie Smith just can't escape the talk of trying to add a star wide receiver to that new-look offense. We'll hear from Lovie and his star quarterback Jay Cutler. Plus, Blackhawks coach Joel Quenneville talks about the team's efforts to re-sign star winger Marty Havlat. Those stories and much more coming up on Sports Night at 6:30. Cap, we send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Ski. Have a good show. Right. Later in the program, Northwestern head football coach Pat Fitzgerald stops by the studio to look ahead to the 09 season. But first, we'll talk some football. The Hall of Fame running back, one of the greatest ever, Gale Sayers. We'll get his take on what's in store for his Bears.
This auto graveyard to demonstrate a remarkable car polish. New Finish, the once-a-year car polish. Simply wipe it on and just wipe it off. It's that easy. And look, New Finish restored a deep, hard shine even to this weather-beaten car. We polished this car with New Finish and ran it through 52 car washes. Even after heavy-duty detergents and powerful scrubbing, the water still beads. So get New Finish.
Available at Pep Boys, Target, Ace, Walgreens, AutoZone, Walmart, and other leading stores.
Follow Tiger's quest to win back-to-back at Bethpage Black during U.S. Open Week on Golf Channel. When the Open returns to New York, live from the U.S. Open on Golf Channel will be your week-long all-access pass to Tiger's title defense at Bethpage.
Shabana Creek RV, behind you on the road and ahead of the competition, just off I-80 in Atkinson, Illinois.
Funmark Cycle Center is the area's largest new motorcycle dealer, selling more new bikes than all other area dealers combined. The reason? No one can beat our prices. With prices like these, you can afford not to check out Funmark Cycle Center. We have a huge inventory of motorcycles. Funmark Cycle Center is a proud sponsor of Wide Open Bar and Grill's Two Wheel Tuesday. Ride your bike down every Tuesday night starting at 5:30 for great fun, food, and prizes. Wide Open will feature food and drink specials every Two Wheel Tuesday. They've also added many new items to their menu. Funmark Cycle Center, your everything motorcycle store in Moline.
Puddle of Mud. Live in concert. Friday, June 26th, Daiquiri Factory Dodgeball Showdown. Tickets on sale now at daiquirifactory.com, ticketweb.com, and all Co-op record stores. Puddle of Mud. Presented by Daiquiri Factory.
On Comcast Sportsnet, fans' best friend.
The San Diego Chicken may have clucked for the final time. Ted Giannoulis, who has played the Chicken for 35 years, is considering hanging up his beak. Giannoulis tells the San Diego Union Tribune he has been considering retirement for a few years. The Chicken now makes about 50 appearances a year, down from 250 during his peak. Welcome back to Chicago Tribune Live, presented by Harris Bank. I'm David Kaplan, joined today by Fred Mitchell, Chris Cook, and Lou Canellis. And we're happy to welcome former Bears superstar running back, Hall of Famer Gale Sayers back to the show. Great to see you. You look wonderful.
Thank you very much. Happy to be back.
You just had your knee replaced a month ago.
Yes, I did.
How you feeling?
I feel pretty good. You know, I've been doing my exercises and doing the therapy, and the doctor tells me that I can start playing golf. So I really feel pretty good.
Well, a month in, you can start swinging again.
Yeah. You know, it feels good. I had a lot of arthritis in my knee. I had some old scar tissue, about 1.5 inches thick, and they had to really clean that out. And for the 8 days into the operation, it was really tough. It's a tough operation. But after
First
that,
8 days.
Yeah, I'm fine right now.
Good for you.
The only way to slow down the Kansas Comet, right?
That's exactly right. Now, the Bears go out and make a huge move in the offseason, stunning a lot of people around here. They get Jay Cutler. What's your take on this?
Well, you know, Jay had 3 good years with Denver, and I think he can be a quality quarterback. I think he's really the first really good quarterback we've chosen since Sid Luckman, probably.
Right.
But I think he can do a good job, but one man can't do it all.
he still needs probably another wide receiver, and the Bears need some defensive backs and people like that. So they got to have more than one player out there, and if you can get the team into a position where they got the players that they can win with, well, then they should be pretty good.
Well, certainly they should make the Bears' offense less predictable. Right. They have more options. And
go downfield a little.
Go downfield, and Gale certainly can attest to the fact that when he was playing, it was Gale to the left, Gale to the right. And other teams knew it, and they still couldn't stop him. But this Bears offense has a lot of potential, I think, with Matt Forte. The tight ends are good receivers, Olsen and those guys. So I see this as being a plus.
I'll be honest with you guys. I was out at their final OTA. Actually, their final OTA is tomorrow, but the last time they took the football field for these OTAs, I was out there earlier today. And after talking to Lovie Smith and talking to Jay Cutler and knowing a little about what's going on inside the organization, I really don't think the Bears are a major player for Plaxico Burress or Brandon Marshall. No. They feel real comfortable with the wide receiver core as is.
Which is amazing. They got two guys that have ever caught a pass in the league.
They believe, Cap, that Jay Cutler will take average wide receivers and make them good. And as you said, Fred, whether you want to believe it or not, this is still a team that will run the football first and throw the football second. Now, my question for you, Gale, is Tony Dungy, the terrific coach who led the Colts to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, came out because he's now a member of our side of the business, the media business, for NBC this coming season, and he questioned the maturity of a Jay Cutler. Do you fear that Jay Cutler's maturity will hamper his play with the Bears?
I really don't think so, because, again, this is his fourth year into the league. Well, he's a veteran now, and he's played with Denver and did very, very well with them. So I think he's the right quarterback, right player for the Bears. And again, I think we still need some other players. And if we can get another wide receiver and get some offensive linemen and protect him, I think he can be a great pick for the Bears.
And also, Gale, you're right, and I think the defense has really got to pick it up. And a lot of people point to the fact that Denver didn't make the playoffs, losing their last, 4 games? Three games. And but Denver's defense didn't do them any favors in stopping anybody.
Your take on Matt Forte, good young prospect.
A great young prospect. He did a great job last year, and I think they're going to use him a little bit more this year, probably on some more swing passes and things like that, get him out in the open. But I like him very, very much, and I think he has